Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're going to jump in and take a look at part 6 of the tutorial of the Department 56 Haunted Mansion display base, and there's been a few changes. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're going to rearrange some things. So in the last video, part 5, I told you that the next phase we were going to do would be to put the grass around and put the fence down, and then the last thing we would do would be the lighting. Well, I did some things off camera, and what I wanted to do was try to get some of that grass down and put more grass on top of the display to represent a little more fresh look, since I'm repurposing this display, and then put some grass around the edge of the first base that sits on top of the second base. I was going to do that. And then spray some glue water mixture on it to start crinkling it up and drying it out and make sure that it stays permanent and doesn't flake off and go all over the place and make a mess. And I also hot glued those two bases together. So now it's just one base, it's all glued together. So when I did that, I tried to put the fence down just as a test, and some of the grass got in the way, and it ended up being just too difficult to do. And so what I'm going to have to do now, I think, is I'm going to have to hot glue that fence down. And when I do that, obviously, that becomes a permanent part of this base as well. So it's modular, but it'll be glued down as one unit. And that makes storage a little more difficult because they stand up a little bit. And so I'll have to store it in a special way, or I can't just throw it in a closet and be done with it. I don't want to break it. And so that started the whole process of thinking, if I do the fence now, and then I have to turn this thing on its side and turn it upside down and start drilling, using hot wired foam tools through the base to get the lights installed, maybe it's best just to do the lights first. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to wire this thing up with some lights to illuminate the Haunted Hearse and to illuminate the Hitchhiking Ghost and that new crypt that I made to kind of illuminate all that, along with the Haunted Mansion that obviously lights up from Department 56. So with that, let's jump off the tripod. Now let me show you where we're at, what it looks like now, and then we'll get started on talking ourselves through the lighting process. Okay, so here we are with the pieces that we need. Now I've got this whole thing kind of propped up on some solo cups. We're going to start working with the hot wire foam tools here in a moment, but you can kind of see, hopefully you can see where the grass is now. So first, this piece, this whole base here, the old base is hot glued down to the new base. So it's all permanent, it's not going anywhere. So that was done. After I did that, I came through with some glue and I started putting glue on where I wanted the grass to go. And in doing so, I put all that down, and then once it started to kind of roll up the sides here, from here up into the top, the old grass looked, well, old, and it didn't really match a whole lot with the new grass. And so what I was able to do then is I said, well, since I'm repurposing this whole thing anyway, it's probably time to sow some new grass. And so that's what I did. I took the moss that I've got and I broke it up real fine, and I basically just kind of laid it out, pressed it down with my hands, and then took the glue water mixture. Again, there's no specific ratio. You take a little bit of glue and a lot of bit of water, more water than glue, and you shake that up, and then you spray that onto the grass and you saturate it, right? So I was very careful, and I covered all this stuff up and really sprayed it on there, and then let it dry. And so here's what it sounds like. Here's how you know that you've done a good job. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's crunchy. It's very crunchy. It doesn't flake off. It doesn't make a mess when you store it, and it doesn't make a mess in your house. Now, if you were to come up and swipe it with your hand, of course things are going to come off, but by and large, it's pretty solid and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's why I do that. And obviously, I think the new grass looks absolutely great. So I was also kind of getting some grass down here with the glue. You can kind of see that. You can kind of see where it's skinned up a little bit in certain areas. And so what I ended up doing is because I wanted the grass to come out a little bit, right? But I didn't measure, and so when I put the fence back on up here, it would not sit right. It would start to lean and fall, and it just didn't look right. So I took a small paint scraper and started scraping back some of that grass and glue water mixture to kind of get the fence to sit right. And so now it sits right, but now I look at, okay, so I got to put grass on the outside with glue and water. And how is that going to work with that fence? It's just, I don't think it's going to work that way. So that's where I come up with a decision to basically glue the fence down, hot glue the fence down in place. And I think it'll be just fine. I know it'll be just fine. It's going to look the same no matter what. So that's what we're going to do later. Today, however, we are going to try to light up this haunted hearse. I wish like crazy Department 56 would have called me and asked me my thought on this before they designed it. Unfortunately, they did not, and it's just it just kind of sits there and looks pretty. And it does look pretty. It's beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece, but it would have been so much cooler with a smoked glass in the back with some green lights in there that would kind of breathe, or maybe just stay on. It doesn't matter. And I think they missed opportunities to light up these little lanterns. Just a couple of missed opportunities, in my opinion. Beautiful piece, but it could have been a whole lot better. So instead of doing all that, we're gonna put an LED down here somewhere to shine up on this like a spotlight and illuminate it at night. We're gonna do the same thing for the Hitchhiking Ghosts. So the Hitchhiking Ghosts are standing in the back of the queue, and so you guys saw the rough copy of the crypt that I was trying to make. Well, the finished copy is sitting right there. I think it turned out incredibly good. I did not do a tutorial on it. I know folks are gonna ask how I did it, and I can explain how I did it in another video if you'd really like to see that. If you'd like to see me explain how I did it and kind of walk you through the process without recreating this as a tutorial, let me know in the comments, and then I'll do a separate video on just the finer points of trying to make something like this. It took a lot of time and a lot of patience, which you guys know I don't have a lot of, but it turned out pretty good. And really, I use the Proxon foam table, so you can kind of see that little crack right there. It's kind of hard to point while I'm holding it, but if you see that crack right there, that's a small piece of foam front that goes all the way across the front, and then I basically cut all that out with an X-Acto knife to match the Disneyland crypts in the back of the queue. It's not perfect, but it's close, and I think it does a pretty good job of reflecting that. Now, again, if Department 56 is watching this, I'd pay you $100 if you'd create one of these about this size and about this thickness, and make it with a couple of green LED lights that kind of show down and kind of illuminate it that way. I think you're missing an opportunity if you don't. I think it's a beautiful piece. It'd be a very beautiful piece with this sort of a detail over here on it. So anyway, there's my plea if they're listening. So we're going to illuminate the Hitchhiking Ghosts with some lights too, and those lights are going to be coming behind these bricks, kind of shining up here, and then that will silhouette them on the crypts there. So that's the plan. So let's rearrange some things, and let me show you what we need to get started with doing the lights. Okay, I think I've got everything set up where you're going to be able to see me work and see the project at the same time. And so first thing we're going to do is kind of go through a list of things that we're going to need to illuminate both the Haunted Hearse and the Hitchhiking Ghost. And I use a company out of Colorado called Evan Designs. You can kind of see their name right there on that package. They're a company that I found online just searching a couple years ago. Needed some some lights for some projects, and so I called them or shot them, went on their website and ordered a bunch of things, and I didn't have too much of an idea of really what I was doing. They actually, the reason I like them now and the reason I always will use them is they found a problem with my order. They were concerned that I wasn't getting the right things. They actually called me and said, hey, are you sure this is what you want? Because this doesn't seem like it's going to be compatible with what you're trying to do. And I just thought that was amazing customer service. Any other company would have just sent it to me and I'd have got it and found out that it didn't work and I'd have to send it back. And so that just impressed me so much with this company that I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to continue to use them versus getting, you know, LEDs and small little lights and things like that from anybody else. So any kind of LED lights that I get, and they got all kinds on their website. Just look for Evan Designs and you can get just about anything you want. They got some pretty cool effects with LED lights in various sizes as well. So, and they're not sponsoring this video, by the way. But so you're going to need some lights. These are of the green variety. They already come with a resistor wired in. So really all you got to do is plug and play. You wire these up, solder them, and you are good to go. But wiring them up and soldering them, what do you wire them up and solder them to? Well, a couple of things. I got this wire a few years back off of Amazon. This is just small gauge, and I don't know what size it is. It's a pretty small gauge wire. It's red and black, and it works exactly for what I need it to. I use it to run street lights and any kind of things that I need to wire up in my village. 3 volts is not a lot, and so this will carry the load just fine. So I've got a whole spool of that. So you're going to need some wire to make your connections a little bit longer. And then you're going to need something ultimately to plug them into. Now, I don't like using batteries. I like putting everything into the electricity if I can, into a plug. And so I found these plugs on Amazon as well. These are 2.5 millimeter female plugs. If you type that in Amazon, plenty will come up. Just select the type that you would like, and you're good to go. This came in a 4-pack. And the reason I like the 2.5 millimeter plugs is because the male end of the Department 56 three-way plugs that you can plug 3 accessories in is a 2.5 millimeter. It fits perfectly in here. It is 3 volts, just like these LED lights are. And so you can use the accessory plug to power your whole display, no matter how many lights you've got, as long as you wire them up correctly. Correctly is red to red, black to black. If you've watched my wiring video before on the street lights, you've heard me say that. Just make sure you're going red to red, black to black on everything, and you're good to go. I'll show you how to do that as we get into that phase of the prep. And then obviously you're going to need a soldering gun and some heat shrink and things like that, but we'll get into that when we start wiring up the project. Okay, and so then also the last thing that I want to show you are these little 3 millimeter or 5 millimeter LED mounting clips. They're these little black clips that the LED pokes through, and I know they're hard to see, but the LED kind of pokes through it. These will be good to help mask the whole LED, to hide it a little bit and kind of get it sitting where we want it to sit, especially when we start wiring this one up back here. And I'll show you how to install those and put those on as we get to that point. Okay, so again, these LEDs are 3 volts, and so I have a 3 volt watch battery. So for testing purposes, I just put the negative to the positive to the positive, the negative to the negative side, and then just squeeze, and we get the light to light up. And so if I put the thing too close, it's not going to illuminate much. If I put it too far away, it's not going to illuminate very much at all. So you got to find that sweet spot. So I'm thinking somewhere probably in this area there. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get the whole thing to light up, but I think we're going to get enough of it to light up to be pretty cool looking at night. So we're going to mark that spot here in a moment, and we're going to take our hot wire foam tool and kind of come down at an angle and get that all the way through both layers of foam. Okay. And so we'll measure that one here in a moment for sure. But then back here on the Hitchhiking Ghost, this is going to be down behind that brick wall, and you can kind of see how that's going to illuminate, especially at night. You can see that the shadow kind of throws itself up onto the mausoleum and the crypts in the back. And And then obviously if you move it to different locations, you can see the shadows. And at night, it's gonna look really, really good. Once we get this wired up, I'll turn the lights down pretty dim and hopefully you'll be able to see it pretty good. But that's gonna go in behind here and shining up. And so we're gonna have to put a hole in the foam there and get that set up and ready to go now. So with that, let me reposition my camera and we are going to put the lights where they need to go. Okay, I said repositioning my camera, but really I meant repositioning myself. So if we're gonna put that light up there, and this is hard to do with one hand, especially, so I apologize if you're not being able to see very good, but I think if we go right down through here, kind of at this angle, okay, and that's why I've got this whole unit up on two legs there. Okay, so let me take a look underneath and make sure that that went through, and I do see a hole there, so that should be good. Now I'm going to reposition myself behind here, remove all of this, and do the exact same thing right in through here. Okay, I was meeting some resistance there, but I think I'm in now. Okay. So those are the only two holes that we need to make. And so now what we've got to attempt to do, and this is going to be probably more difficult than it needs to be, we're going to do one of two things. We're going to, this wire is a lot thicker, and so we're going to find our hole and run that wire right down through it. Now, I know you guys are having a difficult time seeing, but that wire is now through to the display. And so what I'm going to do is cut that wire in a length that I think will be good to take us all the way to the back, and I'll have to show you that once we get there. So I'm going to take probably, more wire is better than not enough wire. In this case, we can always cut it again, and this wire is pretty cheap. So I'm going to cut this wire here with these wire cutters. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same back here. Okay, we're going to cut these, and that went through, yep. So we're going to cut these probably about here. That's probably way too, that is way too much. So let's just go here. Okay, so now the wire is cut. Okay, so I'm back, and what I did is I put the little black clip that I was talking to you about, these little black clips, on the front of this LED light. Hard to focus, I know, I apologize, but you can kind of see what that looks like, okay? And now we're gonna get ready to strip back these wires. And this is probably, I'm gonna say it's probably 20 gauge wire. And so let's see, nope, it's 22 gauge, maybe. Yeah, 22 gauge wire is the gauge of this black and red wire. Okay, so you can kind of see the ends, hopefully. This is tedious work, so it's hard to get close up when you're doing this single-handedly, and I apologize for that. Okay, so I think we're about as close as I can get you to this process here. So I've got the red wire here, and I've got the heat shrink slid down over it. And I'm gonna put this in one of the alligator clips up here. This is called a helping hand. And obviously you'll see why as we get a little farther into it. And so now I'll take the LED light And I'll take the red wire, and I want to be very careful as not to burn anything else. And I will also put that into this alligator clip over here. Actually, let me try to just take this out. And before I do any of that, let me just try to twist these, and let me try to move the camera here. I'm just going to twist the reds around the reds because that is what's about to be soldered, right? And so I'm just trying to wrap those two bare wires around each other, something like that. Okay, now I will put that back into the helping hand. I can kind of also hold this one over here as necessary so it doesn't move a whole lot. So you're kind of set like that, if you can see that. Okay, we've got our solder, right? And this is just a tin rosin core type solder. And our soldering gun has been on. And so now we're just going to, now a lot of people will put flux on and do all that other stuff, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't, I don't have any, and this is such a small little connection that it's gonna be just fine, irrespective of that. And just a small amount of solder on this stuff will do. That's probably good. I'm just gonna add just a little bit more. That's perfect. Okay, now we'll just let that dry, and it dries instantaneously. It's very hot, so obviously you don't want to touch it. But we're gonna do now the same thing on the other side. And these alligator clips are almost too strong for this little bit of wire. Okay, so don't forget to put your heat shrink on. You're gonna want to do that. Okay, so heat shrink is going on. And just like before, we're gonna take the black wire now, and we're going to wrap these just like we did before. We're gonna wrap these around each other. Okay, just like that. Okay, we'll get our LED out of the way. We'll put our clip there, put our clip here to kind of hold that. Okay, and so now we're gonna do the same thing, a little bit of solder. Okay, and just a little bit will work. Again, I like to put just a little extra. Doesn't hurt anything. Okay, so that should be strong enough to hold. Okay, so that is the first connection, and then we'll heat shrink those and get those put away, and then we'll go on to the other side. Okay, I just got basically a lighter here, and we're just going to put the shrink wrap where it needs to go on each one. We're going to do one at a time. We'll do this one first, and you don't want to touch it. And I know, again, this is very hard for you guys to see, so I do apologize. Trying to get it as good as we can here. You just want to get it close to it, and you'll see how that starts to shrink down. Takes it a little bit. And if you have a hot air gun or something like that, that works too. Let's get this one started, and then we'll turn it over and get a little bit more of it. Okay, those are starting to shrink up there pretty good. We'll let those cool just for a minute and make sure we're good. Now we're gonna have to pull all of this through the hole that we just made. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the light, but it's certainly down there, and we've got to affix it. I'll show you how we're going to do that here in a minute. Okay, so here's the battery, here's the positive side, here's the negative side, and you can see the LED lights up. So we are in business there. Okay, so we're gonna leave that just like that for now. We're gonna have to position it once we get the Haunted Hearse on there, and then make sure that it's where we want it. Before we do that, we're gonna rearrange the camera to the back side, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. Okay, I didn't show the last one. It's basically the same as soldering the first one, just trying to save a little bit of time here. So I've gone ahead and installed the back one. I've installed the front one. You saw me install it and solder it. Now let's take a look and see what they look like. They're not going to be powered on because I got to turn the whole thing over. And then once it's turned over, we've got to then solder everything, wire everything up, and then solder it into the plug, this one here, and then we'll be ready to fire it up. But here's where the one in the back has gone, and you can kind of see it right down there, and that is going to, for some reason that's as far as it's letting me zoom in, but you can kind of see it sitting down there, right on the concrete right behind that brick wall, and so it's sort of out of sight. And then the other one, as we move over to the Haunted Hearse, you can kind of see it sitting down in the grass right there. And so that'll be covered up with some more grass and some foliage and rocks and plants and things like that. So you'll never see it once it's hidden from view, just like it'd be hard to see that one from the front of the display. So with that, let's get this thing turned over, and let's get it ready to wire everything up. Okay, so the first thing that we've got to do before we start wiring these up is to use the hot wire foam tool. Now this is the handheld engraver, and we need to trench an area to kind of run both of these wires together, and then bring them out of the back of the display where we can wire them up. So we've got to be very careful because the wires are already run, and so we're gonna, hopefully you can see here. Okay, probably overkill on that much tape, but that's okay. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's all secure. So now we can now turn this back over because it's not going to fall out, and we can work on it right side up. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to now cut these to a specific, really a non-specific length, just to shorten them up. Something about like that. Okay, save that for some future need, potentially. Okay, now we've got to strip all of these back. Okay, likewise, we're going to go red to red. Black to black. Okay, red to red and black to black. So let's do black first. And if you don't have a heat gun or a lighter, or you just don't want to do the heat shrink, you don't have heat shrink, you can certainly use the electrical tape. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to reinforce this with quite a bit of electrical tape. Okay, so that should be the plug. So let's go get the adapter and we'll see if it works. Okay, I'm back and I've got my three adapter plug from Department 56. This is the one I'm talking about. These are 2.5 millimeter male plugs. This goes into a 2.5 millimeter female plug. And then when we plug this in, you can see both the LEDs come on. And so now we can put that plug on a timer, just like we do for the rest of our village. And when the village comes on, these LED lights will come on as well. And so now we're all wired up. Not the prettiest job underneath, but nobody's gonna see it underneath. And the lights are gonna shine just where they're supposed to. And I think it's gonna look really, really good. So with that, let's go ahead and decorate it and see how it looks with the lights down. Okay, so here we are with the kitchen lights off, still daylight out, but the kitchen lights are off, and so you can see the effect that it shows with those LED lights. Now, I just put a couple of small little fern type plants down there. We'll probably put some more, but that hides the light pretty good, and it just really creeps, throws that creepy green light up on top of the Haunted Hearse. And then you can see back in the back with, now the pet cemetery will go right here, just like the Haunted Mansion. They'll have some little tombstones in there, which will further hide that light. You really can't see it unless you get right up to the top, but that tombstone will hide that. And the cool part is, I love the way that it casts the shadow back against the crypts and the mausoleum back there. I built that for a backdrop specifically to kind of highlight the Hitchhiking Ghosts. And then when I thought about the light, I'm like, that's gonna look really cool with a shadow effect on there. And I love the way that looks. I think what I'm gonna do next is turn the lights on, and then let's talk about what's coming next on this particular project. Okay, you can still, even in the lights, and these are bright lights, that it still lights it up pretty good. I mean, you can still tell that there's something lit up on it. And the cool thing is the LEDs are movable as far as repositioning. So if I found out that this is not exactly where it needs to go, or it needs to go back or out or whatever, you can reposition this light down here to work just the same. I mean, really by just pushing it a little bit to a new area, and then you are good to go. So that's the beauty of the LED lights. Okay, so what's coming next? I'll tell you what, guys, I think I'm gonna do one more tutorial after this, and it's not really a tutorial, it's just gonna show you the finished product. Because quite honestly, here's what's coming next. I'm gonna try to paint this the same colors up here, just so it matches a little bit more when the gate's up there. You'll never really see it, but if you were to look in behind it, I don't want it to be grass right there. I want it to be sort of the same color. So I'm probably gonna paint it that color. I'm also probably gonna do a layer of green, and not real thick green, just a little smattering of green all along the edge, especially, I don't know if you can see my pencil marks there, but this is where the gate kind of rests. So right in this area here, it needs to have a little bit of green on it so you don't see the black. And then the same thing right here. You can kind of see the green going around there. Or that's where the green needs to go, right in around there. And so that green will come all the way out, and kind of, the gate will sit in there, so I'm not too worried about that. But I am gonna paint this part of the thing green. This is a mess up. I thought maybe putting a magnet in here and then a magnet on the bottom of the fence would click them down in, and that just ended up to be too much of a process. So I'm just gonna paint that green and put some glue into it, and then stick the fence post right on top of that, and you'll never see it, especially with the grass. So once this is all painted green, okay, the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to hot glue, and this is the reason I'm not doing another video. This is pretty basic stuff. I'm going to do some painting of green. I'm going to do the hot gluing the fence down to where it needs to go. I'm going to shove some more moss in behind the fence to kind of fill in the gaps, and then just drench that with a glue water mixture and let that cure. I think I'm going to build a wall that's going to look like a brick wall. Again, you've seen me do these bricks down here. You've seen me do the brickwork on the fence itself. It's the same concept. I'm going to build a small brick wall that is going to be probably not as tall as the mausoleum, but it's going to sit on this side to kind of provide somewhat of a backdrop to this side of the Haunted Mansion. It looks odd without it, I think. So I'm going to build one of those. That shouldn't take very long, and that should be pretty simple. Matter of fact, I don't even think I'll grout that one like this. I think I'm just going to leave it like these here, or like the fence that you saw, and just it's back there for a backdrop. It's out of the way. And then once that is done, that's it. That's the whole Haunted Mansion itself. Put some more bushes and places and things like that, some trees and maybe some fall foliage here and there. But that's really about it. So the next time you see it, it's going to be complete. So this is part 6. Part 7 will be the final presentation of the entire Haunted Mansion repurposed diorama, vignette, whatever you want to call it. So that's where we're headed. Okay, well, hopefully this all made sense. I know it was haphazardly done. I wanted to get it kind of done and over with. And hey, if you didn't learn anything about soldering here, I do apologize. What I would like you to do, if that's the case, is go back and watch my video on how to solder lights together. It's hopefully a lot more, it explains a lot more and shows a lot more, and is done in a more the right type of setting where I was going to do all of that. So this was not that, and I do realize that this was really hard to do, especially upside down on cups, different camera angles, and it's just it was a mess, and I realized that. But at the same time, I wanted you to see it because it is important to learn and to understand how to install LED lights, or any kind of lights for that matter, into your village, into your displays, into your vignettes, because it adds a whole nother level of depth and realism that people just don't understand until you see it. And it's relatively simple to do. Like I said, I use the Evan Designs website to order my LEDs. It's pretty simple. You get a red wire and a black wire. You don't have to worry about figuring out resistance and all the other stuff that comes with the LEDs and electricity and everything else. They've done all that for you. You simply go red to red, black to black, hook everything together, plug it into a 3-volt power supply, and it works like a champ, just like you see. The good part about LEDs, they last forever. And so that, you plug this into a surge protector, just like I'm going to plug my Haunted Mansion in. That's the only piece on here that lights up. The only piece that they've released, Department 56 has released, that has any sort of a power supply with it. So it's one plug, and now I've got 2 plugs, right? And so in the future, I could add more lights to this. I could do, whatever, and wire them right back into that same plug if I needed to do that, and we are good to go. So hopefully that helps, and hopefully you see how the lighting, it just adds to the overall effect. Now, I didn't show you everything with a house and a fence and all that because I want to save that until the final video. I want you to see it as it's all set up and done with everything complete, and we'll put that one in the books and call it done. Hey, speaking of putting it in the books, we're almost done with this. We got one more. And so, I want to show you what's coming next. But before I do that, If you've liked this video, make sure that you click the like button. It certainly helps the channel to grow and helps me out, and I appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, well, what are you waiting on? Subscribe, that way you don't miss a video. You get notified, especially if you click the little bell icon. Anytime a new video comes out, you can watch it at your leisure, but at least you know it's there. You don't have to go searching for it. So please subscribe. Again, it helps the channel to grow. Share these videos with folks that you know are like-minded and want to start this hobby for themselves, or just are intrigued by it. It's a cool hobby to get into. And so that's going to wrap this one up. One more, and we're going to put this one in the books. Coming after that, I want you to take a look at this picture. It's a still picture, but take a look. This is the initial design for my trick-or-treat lane with a little city street, the whole housing. It's going to have a pumpkin patch, a church with a cemetery. It's going to be modular in design on purpose, so it's easier to do and simpler to see. And so we're going to get started on that. I took everything out last night, which was a mess, just to get it set up and get it started to be organized. I want to get that one started immediately because it's going to be incredibly detailed and incredibly, hopefully over the top, one that you're going to look at and just be blown away with. At least that's the goal, as always. So until next time, take care of yourselves. We'll talk again real soon.